Welcome to Suburban Death Metal Dad Recommends, episode 18. In this episode, I'll be talking about Pestilence. They were formed in 1986 in the Netherlands, first lineup being Patrick Mamelli, Randy Meinhardt, and Marco Faudis. They released their first demo in 1987, titled Dysentery. On this release, Patrick Mamelli provided guitars, bass, and vocals, with Randy Meinhardt on second guitar and Marco Faudis on drums. Then they released a second demo, also in 1987, this time with Martin Van Drunen taking care of vocals. And in 1988, that's when they released their debut album, Malleus Maleficarum, and this is a excellent death thrash release, and killer tracks like the opener, Anthropomorphia, Malleus Maleficarum, Chemotherapy, Bacterial Surgery, Systematic Instruction, Extreme Unction, Commandments, just start to stop, really great release, very good songwriting. Martin Van Drunen's vocals are killer. It's just a really great release in my opinion. So after the release of the debut album, guitarist Randy Meinhardt left the band and is replaced by Patrick Utervik, and the band released their second album in 1989, Consuming Impulse, which is, considered one of the classic early death metal albums, and for a very good reason. On this one, Opener Dehydrated is a great track. Process of Suffocation, Suspended Animation, classic song Out of the Body, Reduced to Ashes, just a very good death metal release. Has a really nice production, once again, really good songwriting. So this is definitely one to check out. So in 1990, bassist vocalist Martin Van Drunen was out of Pestilence, and Patrick Mamelli took over vocals, and they recruited bassist Tony Choi and recorded and released the excellent Testimony of the Ancients. And this was in 1991 when it came out, and it's just a fantastic technical death metal album. The band is basically evolving from, the early death thrash into death metal and now into technical death metal. And this is probably my favorite release from the band. Killer tracks like Opener, Secrecies of Horror, Testimony, Twisted Truth, Presence of the Dead, Stigmatized, Land of Tears, just really an amazing and very catchy album. Patrick Mamelli is a great vocalist, and just everybody on the album performs flawlessly. And there's basically 8 full songs and then 8 additional instrumental interlude tracks on the album for a total of 16 tracks. So this is definitely one not to pass up, and check it out for sure.
A reason to die, no remission of sins committed when you were fighting to the end. In the voices, you ask for the treasure of death. I have been the presence of the dead. Away, the book of life, strike, second death. Burn in the laser fire, nasty false prophet.
So then in 1993, the band releases the album Spheres. This time, Tony Choi is no longer on bass, and they have J. Paul Fesseling playing fretless bass, and both Patricks are also playing guitar synth. So this is a very, say, jazzy fusion type metal album with kind of a spacey type atmosphere. It's, I think, an album more for like just kind of chilling out and listening to, not one to like, get the blood pumping. But it still is different, and actually I like it a lot. I think it's a very good release. It's definitely something different, and especially for 1993, I think the band was in some ways ahead of their time. So this is one I think also to check out. You know, Very cool songs like Mind Reflections, Demise of Time, Spheres, Level of Perception, Soul Search. So yeah, check this one out for sure. Then in 1994, unfortunately, Pestilence broke up, and they were gone for quite a while, and returned in 2008 and released their next album in 2009 titled Resurrection Macabre. And this is a pretty brutal sounding album. I think the most brutal sounding album they put out up to this point. Songs like Devouring Frenzy, Hate Suicide, Fiend, Dehydrated 2. They also re-recorded some old tracks for the Digipack, uh, Lost Souls, Out of the Body, and Chemotherapy. So this is definitely one to check out. I think it's a pretty good release. Then in 2011, they released the next album, Doctrine. Once again, another lineup change on this one. Tony Choi is gone, but J. Paul Fesseling returns. If you remember, he played on Spheres. And also Patrick Utrovic, who last played on Spheres as well, also returns. And new drummer Yuma Van Ekelen. And once again with Patrick Mameli. And this release, again, it's similar to Resurrection Macabre, sounding pretty brutal. And, if this is a style you like from Pestilence, definitely check this one out as well. Songs like Salvation, Malignant, Am God, Sinister. In 2013, the band releases Obsidio, and I'm a pretty big fan of this album. This is probably my favorite so far since they got back together in 2008. It's a bit more technical, but still brutal. More catchy, in my opinion. I like the production on it. Um, Patrick Mameli, of course, still with the band, obviously. And returning guitarist Patrick Utrovic, along with drummer David Haley and George Merrill on bass. Great songs like the title track, Necromorph, Distress, Soul Rot, Transition. Like I said, this is one that I think is definitely worth checking out, and especially if you like the brutal but also the technical from Pestilence. So give this one a spin. So the band splits up again for a second time from 2014 to 2016, and then returns with another album in 2018, Hadeon. And I'm also a really big fan of this album. And Patrick Mameli, once again, is the only remaining member from the previous lineup. But like I said, this album I think is also very good. Another, brutal but very technical album. Songs like Multidimensional, Astral Projection, Manifestation, Timeless, Layers of Reality. You know, like I said, if you're a fan of Obsidio, this is also one to check out.
Different place of existence, the frequency of that dimension, verbal limited distance, all is nothing special.
In 2021, the band releases Exidium, and this is an album that initially I wasn't that into. There's like a lot of orchestration throughout the album. I'd say quite a bit anyway. And for whatever reason, I was just, just wasn't in the mood at the time when I first picked it up, and ended up revisiting it, say, I don't know, a few months ago. And, suddenly I was like, actually, this is a really great album and one of their best since they got back together in 2008, along with Hadeon and Obsidio. I would say this is probably, my third or maybe even second favorite out of those three. And just like I said, it's also very technical and very catchy. It's still heavy and brutal. And like I said, the orchestration throughout the album, initially I wasn't that into it, but having gone back to it, I think it's very good. And I don't want to butcher all these song titles, but, it's definitely one that I think deserves a listen. And, if you're a fan of Pestilence, don't pass this one up.
There will be no survivors to tell the tale of me. You're on the stormy riders that disobey.
So in 2024, the band released Levels of Perception, which they had taken drum tracks from a live stream they did in 2021 and then recorded the guitars, bass, and vocals around those tracks, the drum tracks. And, it's basically like, I don't want to say a best of, but basically it was the set list from that show they did. And, this one didn't get a very warm reception, but to be honest, I actually like it a lot. It's really stripped down and underproduced, but, it's still Pestilence, and, I enjoy it quite a bit, actually. All right, so right now I'm going to do an unboxing. This is an order that I received quite a while ago, but I held off for this video, and there's stuff from other bands in the box. So I'm just going to edit that out and just show the Pestilence stuff. So check it out. And like I said, this is pretty old. I was just holding off for this video. Consuming Impulse, the re-release on Agonia Records. Got quite a few different versions of all the Pestilence CDs, from the 80s and 90s. And Spheres, also the Agonia Records re-release, remastered apparently. And Malleus Maleficarum and Testimony of the Ancients, all the Agonia Records versions. So I'm eager to check these out. Remastered. Testimony of the Ancients t-shirt. I'm definitely a big fan of this artwork. And the album, of course. Nothing on the back. Okay. And finally here, Spheres on blue vinyl from Agonia Records. So that's it for the unboxing.